Hello. Today is June 8th, 1991. I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to listen to the tape of the Saturday morning session of the 37th Annual Four State and D.C. Spring Get-Together held in Winchester, Virginia. I thank you, and I hope you enjoy this tape.
Everyone, my name's Bob, and I'm an alcoholic, and it's good to see you all here. Welcome to Saturday morning, 37th Annual Four State and D.C. Spring Get-Together, and we're glad you're all here. I'm glad I'm here. And I will qualify myself by the third tradition that I have a desire not to drink today, and that's why I'm here, and I qualify. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for any membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. A is not allowed with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail as thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. Are those two who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God and to ourselves and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't get through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought. Before I speak, I'm real proud to be here. I'm real proud to introduce my friend Bill here. We're the Bill and Bob show today, so you get to see Bob and Bill, and Bill's going to speak on your traditions. And that's neat, and I'll be glad to let you people all know that we're going to have a meeting on all 12 traditions, because Bill read about all 12 of them on the way here. So So he knows all of them. That's not the truth, though. Bill was my first sponsor, and he helped me a lot with some of the traditions. And especially principles before personalities, which is they're all real important. And without much further ado, I'm going to let my friend Bill come up here and share his experience, strength, and hope on the traditions with you.
My name's Bill. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, Bill. Hell of a start, wasn't it? I'm extremely nervous, and I feel a little inadequate being here. My sponsor did this to me. I accepted. Speaking on the guardian angels of our fellowship, the 12 traditions, I feel that it's an honor and a privilege. And I'd like to thank Gail and for contacting me and the committee for asking. I'm a member of the fellowship group in York, Pennsylvania. I've been sober since September 20th, 1984, and for that I'm very, very grateful. I'd like to briefly qualify myself and like to show you how I operated in my addiction. The only really way I can do that is let you see through the eyes of someone else how Bill was. And when I was in rehab in Baltimore, Maryland, at Shepherd Pratt, I wasn't very willing to be a part of this fellowship. A guy came in, and I saw people hugging outside, and I think that's neat with a roundup or a conference. I love the hugs, and I walked in, and a guy hugged me, and I went, whoa, he wanted what I had, and I was a little skeptical at that. There were some things in my past that I had never told anybody. Those deep, dark secrets we'd swear we'd never tell anybody, and we lived the image of, yes, I'm fine, and that was the beginning of what I was later told was a beautiful journey, and it didn't start out that way. I wasn't real willing in rehab. I was very much denial of the normal story, and I received a letter, and I just need to qualify myself because this is Bill, and this is through the eyes of a lady that brought me up, my mom. And here are the consequences as I see them resulting from your obsessions with alcohol. These are my impressions. You love pot, drugs, alcohol, etc. You made it from the very first your way of life. You bragged about it. You did nothing else to speak of. You never noticed that many of your friends went on to school, got meaningful jobs, and got married. You seemed to act like life was one big party. You couldn't keep even drug friends. 1 minute a buddy was the best guy in the world, and the next minute you were moving. He was terrible, and you found a new buddy, and so on and so on. You got secretive. You lied so much, I'm not sure you ever told the whole truth about anything. And in the last few years, I'm not sure you even knew the truth. Became really good at feeling sorry for yourself. You would not talk about anything except sports. Even when I tried to talk of something else, you were obviously impatient to get it over with and couldn't wait to get away. If I tried to talk about you, you always said, I won't talk about that and leave, or you hurt my feelings and leave. Part of your defense was to take quick offense. Sometimes, of course, if you wanted money, you would make references to not having anything for 2 or 3 months, etc. You used gifts and money to make friends and then would get upset when it didn't work. You always demanded instant help, instant money, instant understanding. You never tried to persuade, just demand. If we talked on the phone and I differed with you about anything, you just hung up. I learned that, and this was in the last few years, you would call back and apologize. You either had something you wanted me to do, or you wanted money. You never noticed or seemed to care about how others felt or what plans of theirs you might be interrupting. Remember the time after I had an operation, you brought 2 friends down from Baltimore, and you were hurt and surprised that I had not cooked dinner for you all. At that time, I could hardly fix a cup of tea for myself. You could not solve personal problems. You just cried and went to pieces, or you blew your top and then sulked. You not only had a reputation of silliness, being a lightweight and quote a wild man, etc., you were proud of it. You had no memory of little or big things. You were always insisting. You didn't tell me. You looked terrible. I'm glad that's changed. You had a wild, dumb, secretive look that got worse over the years. You loved to shock people and then got mad when you did. To hear you talk, you were the most mistreated and misunderstood person on earth. People cheated you. You got very upset every time you got back the treatment you dished out. You never learned to feel any emotions except extreme laughter or the depths of despair. Any stress for any reason, you just exploded or sulked and cried. When you were at home, you wrecked your room, many things in the house. If you came in at night, you might leave the back door open in the middle of winter, a burner going on the stove. You were filthy in the bathroom. I was often afraid for you and of you. Remember the time I was coming to unlock the door one morning, you couldn't wait. You just rammed your fist through the glass. You avoided the family as much as you could and always had to leave. In the day, you had errands and always had to meet somebody at night. You developed an hysterical, artificial laugh, a put-on laugh, but you were never content. Your speech deteriorated so to filth, etc., that even when you tried to clean it up, you were using terms and words which embarrassed people. Living in a cocoon which you spun tighter and tighter around you, your protective covering. Where you went with drug people, drug problems, drug fun, drug everything. You limited your world more and more as time went on until everything was connected with drugs. Quote, my favorite quote was, at that time, was everybody does it. You got to the point where your drug and alcohol addiction were creating the very problems that you were taking drugs to get relief from. You lost control of your attitudes, your emotions, your mental ability, your ability to learn, remember any chance of being reliable, the chance to have choices, whether friends or jobs or problem solving. You're a 13-year-old in a man's body. Now, having said that, let me tell you what you were as I and your brother see you before drugs. You were a handsome, bright, sparkling-eyed, and loving little boy, affectionate and caring who loves sports, who had an artistic ability. Do you remember? Who was really interested in things, who was open, sensitive to the feelings of others, much more so than the other boys. You loved music and had a beautiful singing voice, so did your grandfather Middleton. You were born with a perfect body, a good mind, the ability to see, hear, feel, touch, and taste. You had a memory, not a mean bone in your body. Then you were born with a memory bank, your mind, which you were filling with the experiences and information which in adult life would help you to make sound judgments, have integrity, and a set of standards to help you make sound choices. Then you started cramming it with garbage, lies, deceit, self-indulgences, cheating, wrong ideas as a result of drugs and alcohol. It seems to me you've got to talk. You've got to get rid of all this rotten garbage, throw it out, and replace it from there. Replace it with truth and build from there. Bill, with God as my witness, I know the real you. The good you is still there, hidden under those years of drugs and litter. All you have to do is to start digging. The real you is worth it. I pray I live long enough to see you truly happy and not artificially happy. I hope I get to see a real sparkle and good health in your eyes again to become a reasonable adult. I've not gone in your injuries, accidents, bad checks, arrests, etc. You know all that. The consequences I have listed are what has happened to your personality, etc. I love you and always will, but I hate the consequences of your drug life. I have been your enabler. I quit. I didn't really help you. Besides, now that you know you're an alcoholic, you now have to and to get to be responsible for your own self. And that was a letter from my mom. I think I qualified for this program. I may not qualify to speak on their tradition, but I qualified for this program. I'm real grateful for that lady, and the reason I read you that is to let you know me, because I have a selective memory. I have an image to uphold today, being a recovering drunk. I walked in with a lot of attitudes. I walked in with a set of standards that I thought was the way to live. And if you crossed my life, you were wrong, and I discarded you just like garbage, And I didn't look at the traditions when I came into this program. I didn't look at the steps. I didn't want to be here. And through strong sponsorship, and I'm real grateful for sponsorship, I've been able to be sober since I walked through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm real grateful for that. Bobby left me a list of the traditions so I can don't have to turn around to the wall. I don't know them all, but I've had some experience with them, and that's what I'd like to share with you today. I was sitting outside and I was real nervous, and Robert's got a medallion with 21 years on. I'm going, oh my God. And I called my wife, and by the way, if anybody hears the payphone ring, please answer that. I have a pregnant wife at home that may be giving birth any minute, so I would appreciate that. We have a 2.5-hour drive to get back, so if you hear that phone, please answer that. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. When I walked in, you all were not what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in a group. I wanted to be alone. I sat on the wall. I sat on the side of meetings. I sat like this, in my throne of contempt, I like to call it. And I felt you people should come up and talk to me. I had attitudes. I didn't have any belief. I believed there was a guy, but I believed, well, great, he doesn't like me anymore. He likes my 3 older brothers who were very successful. And I sat there. I thought what was best for me was best for you. And what I've come to understand is that I have these traditions teach me to put my personal goals, my personal gains aside, and what's best for the group is best for everything. I learned that. We started you'll see some flyers out front. I have to plug this conference for the Pennsylvania State Conference of Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's the 3rd one coming up in Valley Forge. And we started that, and young has anybody who has room to grow. So there may be some people with an attitude that, young people's conference, it's different. No, it's not. So we also state that. But the way I learned a lot of the traditions was through service. My sponsors were real good at getting in service, and they got me on the answering service. And they started getting me involved when I didn't want to be involved. In the conference setting, I guess you all know from being on the committee here, is that you sit up front, and I was the chairman of the first one, or the co-chairman of the first one, and you get a lot of fingers pointed at you. And I was a regional vice president, big deal, in a business, and I thought I knew what was best. And I had Robert's Rules of Order, and I was just really, I was hip, slick, and cool sitting up front, and people disagreed with me, and I was like, how could you? I've worked hard to gain my position. You guys, you just don't know what you're talking about. And it's amazing through all the guns coming up, I like to call little six-shooters coming up and pointing fingers, and I wasn't always wrong, but I wasn't always right. That God speaks through the group conscience, and I just believe that so hardly. Like I said, I believe the first tradition tells me to put my personal goals aside. That if it's left up to me, this thing will perish. We will die. Left up to myself. I believe that today. My recovery left up to me, I will die. I believe that. One of the fears that I have is if I use again, I will live the life that I lived before, and that's very, very scary for this alcoholic. That my mother's letter touched on personality, and she doesn't know probably a quarter of the things that I did. Boy, that would really harm her. Anyway. For a group purpose, there's one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. When I talk about the conference, I'm putting everything together. I really can't sit and talk about one specific thing. It's God spoke through people in that meeting. And one thing my sponsor told me that I was reading the traditions on the way down, and there was a story about Bill, and he was approached by Charlie at a hospital, and Bill was broke, and Lois was cooking for all the drunks. I guess you people know all this story, but it's important for me to identify with it. And he was approached by someone on the outside and said, "Bring your movement here, we could make a lot of money." The hospital could make a lot of money. You could make a lot of money. You could get Lois to work out of the store, and Bill thought that was a great idea. And he was going on the subway, and there was a little divine thought came into his mind about a passage from the Bible. I may not quote it exactly, but a laborer is worth his hire. And Bill thought that was the Word of God. And then he expressed that to the people at the meeting that night, and they said, "How could you? This thing it can't not become professional." Charlie's idea was very ethical, as were my ideas were very ethical, and I thought was right for the conference. And I didn't think my goal was to protect the conference, to make it the best possible way to carry the message. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. But anyway, Bill knew it was very ethical, and he stood at the turning point. I think there are many, many moments that we stand at turning points in this program. And his friends expressed to him through the group conscience that night that this thing cannot do that. Yes, it's ethical, but AA needs more than ethics. And the group conscience spoke and saved this program for you and I. And I think that's a miraculous event. And I can sit up here and say that story, but it really hits me that this thing stood at many, many turning points along the way. And that's what their traditions stand to me. They protect the fellowship from me. It's going a lot quicker than I thought. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. Reading my mother's letter, I let you know that I had drugs in my past. And I have to say this. I've been to tradition meetings lately, and it's funny. I think I said this to Gail on the telephone when I talked to her. You ever notice when there's a tradition meeting, and you say tradition 3, and people go, and they look up at it like, what the hell is that? and I'm just as guilty. But anyway, I came in, and somehow, I was different. I did not want to stop drinking. The night before, I was in the block in Baltimore, and some people from Baltimore here, you can identify. And I was caught between a rock and a hard place. I didn't know where I was going, and the world that I was used to didn't want me anymore. My buddy, my best friend, quote, friend in the world, didn't want to have anything to do with me. He said, "You're no good to us. You're going to a rehab." And he threw me out. And that was a very devastating turning point in my addiction. I can laugh about that today, but it's very, very true. I stood at the turning point. I did not want to stop drinking when I came in here. I wanted to cut the other substances out of my life. And I came in and I had attitudes, like I said earlier, and I came in and I was an addict. I'm different. See, I don't have to be in your I don't have to do what you did because you're alcoholic. Somehow I'm different. I don't have to do what you did. And I got a sponsor. and Steve from Baltimore, Steve K from Baltimore, he just laughed, and he said, good, Bill. You just stick around for a while and you listen to meetings. And then I was an addict alcoholic. Oh, God, and okay, I'll do a little bit of what your program says, but, okay, now I kind of qualify for this meeting because I kind of had a desire to stop drinking. Yeah, I talked a great game. I did not have the desire. Like I said, I spent too much money on other things. I stuck around and I got on the answering service and I went on 12-step calls and I became an alcoholic addict at this point. And and then I stuck around a little while longer and I became an alcoholic because I understood that the disease is alcoholism, defined way back when the drug of choice of the civilized world was alcohol. Defined today, it would be something else. I don't know, but I'm an alcoholic. The one thing that I denied in this program, and that happened at about 11 months sober. I called my sponsor and I was petrified. I'm celebrating a year. I'm petrified. And he goes, well, what do you think? And he goes, damn, I'm an alcoholic. And he goes, good. You've been here 11 months. You're quick. I hope you learn everything this fast. And his response was like yours. And I believe in alcohol, and this is my opinion, and this is my opinion only. Alcoholic addict is a redundant statement. The disease is alcoholism. I qualify. I didn't want to be here. My desire to stop drinking came at 11 months when I admitted to my sponsor, and I believed to a God of my understanding that I was an alcoholic. And I got goosebumps, I got God bumps, and it's just a neat thing, I see people going through the exact same things that I went through here, and then inside the book, the 12 and 12, it talks about they went out in different areas and how important this tradition is to us. That so what if somebody is an addict? So what if they have the desire? The book said a sincere desire to stop drinking. Well, they took that out, a sincere desire. If they had sincere desire here, I wouldn't have stayed, I don't believe. It's very, very scary. But I love that. I made a comment to Bobby. I said, well, now I think, almost 7 years later, I think, well, they should put that back in. Because I've grown past that, But thank God it was just a desire to stop. And my sponsor explained to me that it's a desire to stop living the hell that you lived in before. You may not want to be here, so what? You may not want to be here, but so what? Stay here and try. And I saw people laugh, and laughter in Alcoholics Anonymous is God speaking through you to me. That was the one thing that impressed me about AA, was that I walked in and you smiled and you had laughter. The laughter was different. The laughter I had was very defensive laughter. It was always guarding something back there in my past. And today I'm pretty current of what's going on in my life. My bills are current. My life is current. And it's going to get currenter as my wife has a baby. But reality sets in. But I'm real grateful that the sponsors explain stuff to me in a way that I believe I don't have the ability to explain to you. It was that one-on-one message, that one-on-one that God spoke through him, that told me, you just keep coming back. You just keep coming back. And we realize you need to be here. But when you realize you need to be here, that's the miracle, and that's real beautiful. In the conference, each group should be autonomous. I lost my place, except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. I found that I sit on the advisory board for Pensy Pine, and we've learned a lot of experience. As old-timers give to us, as I can pass on to the people that I sponsor, I've learned a lot of sober experience. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to abide by what I say, and everybody realizes that sponsors people. But as what I found about this is that sitting on the advisory board of Pensy Pine, we have sober experience to give them, and they don't want to listen. I'll do it my way. Now, I can't identify with that at all. Except in matters affecting AA as a whole or other groups. And what I found out is that groups can run by themselves. Groups can run by themselves. They set their own principles. They set their own guidelines. But if it's going to harm other groups, there's a story, and I can't quote this, but there's a story in the 12 and 12 about if that's what they want to do, then that's fine. We do not govern. But we can suggest that this is the way our sober experience sound. We have one thing going on with the conference now is that we had a hard time closing the bank account from last year's conference. So we decided as a group that we would have signature cards that we would get on as advisory board. And they flat out said no. They said no. We are autonomous. I learned again. The lessons that I've learned are always growing, and I'm real grateful to this experience that this is a learning experience for me. This got me to read, being here. This got me to open my mind up one more time, and that's why I said yes. It's just an interesting topic. What affects AA? What is good for AA? Most of the squabbles that we came into as a group of deciding, well, this is the way the book says and this is what we should do, was that it was all designed to make AA better, what we thought would carry the message the best way. It may not have been right, but a lot of us stayed sober. A lot of us carried the message, and the message is still carried on by others today. That no matter what I think is good, again, for the group, that they're going to make decisions, and what my sponsor let me do with that story I told you about being an addict, alcoholic, is that he let me make decisions, right, wrong, or indifferent. He let me do that, and he let me accept the responsibility of my actions, and that's what kept us growing, and that's what kept me growing and kept me coming back. Each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. In York, lately, we've had a lot of meetings that people have been saying, what's the message that we're sending to people? People are coming in, and it's a very good thing. In Tennessee at ICIPA, the International Conference of Young People in AA, they talked about, we may be the only copy of the big book somebody ever sees. We are responsible. Wow, that's a heavy load to carry. That's a very heavy load to carry. And the message that we're sending. And what my sponsor tells me is that there's no dogma. There's no set thing that we say, and if you alter from that path, you're wrong. And we don't know. What I've learned through this is that I don't know what the alcoholic needs to hear. By God, I don't know what I need to hear. And so it's people come in and they talk about different things about Sears. This what happened yesterday. The Sears came in and charged my mother $39 for something different, and I didn't see what it had to do with anything. Of course, I'm on my throne of contempt one more time, as I'm sure people are today. Is that what the hell does this have to do with anything? And what it has to do with is me keeping an open mind and me letting them the right to grow and to experience and to express themselves. I don't know what I need to hear. I don't know what you need to hear. And the message is very, very simple. The primary purpose is that I can become a jack of all trades, a master of none. My primary purpose is to stay sober. I can't start doing everything. For me as the alcoholic, my life gets filled with things. As you become sober, your life gets filled with things, and my primary purpose sometimes gets diverted. Well, I'm busy today. Why should I go to a meeting? I'll go tomorrow. I was talking with a guy on the answering service night before last, and he said he was going to go to a meeting on Monday. I said, what the hell day is this? He said, Thursday. I said, oh. Do you want help or not? The primary purpose. Sometimes what I've learned is I've got a new machine called an answering machine, and I stick that on. I have a young baby that was born with cancer, and she's fine now. But she was operated on at 10 days old, and the answering machine was a way of filtering things. I was very involved on the answering service, going out in the middle of the night with my butterfly net and the big book and trying to save people. And I had to learn a balance, but what I did was I found a balance, and I went a little bit that way. See, I was going out almost every night or whatever it was, but I was going extremes to here and extremes to there. And what I've learned is that my primary purpose is to do what's been taught to me. You know, is to pass this thing on. And sometimes I better damn well be inconvenienced. I heard Clancy say that in Las Vegas at a roundup. He said, "You better damn well be inconvenienced." I've never forgotten that. He also wrote in my big book that less than 1% make it. You better damn well be inconvenienced. See, my life gets filled with things, and I start going, okay, here, and the kids got to go here, and the kids got to go there. Well, the very thing that gave me my life today is this program. I need to stay focused. I need to constantly work the steps. I need to look at those things on that side and to find out how I can better protect this fellowship for me. You know, the primary purpose. Got it. You know, I think the one thing that I feared today was that I couldn't carry the message, because I felt something in these rooms. I've been given a life that's absolutely gorgeous. You know, part of it when I came in I didn't deserve. Somebody carried the message to me. Somebody's damn well got inconvenienced. You know, and as I look out here today, it's you know, it's neat. Probably some people were inconvenienced to get here. You know, they sacrificed things, maybe got a relationship a little bit angry at someone else, you know. And sometimes I have to look at that and find out why. I also need a balance on the other side, too. I can't always be here. You know, I have to learn that balance, and God, that's scary. In the beginning, I used to go to 4 meetings a day. You know, I was scared to go out there with my, you know, into the real world. And I had to, again, find a balance. I don't know where I'm going with some of this stuff, and probably you don't either, but, you know, part of the message that I carry, I have to become a student of this program. Laura shared at an Icky-Pine that I went to Miami for my first Icky-Pine, and I met this girl there, and she said she came from an area that wasn't strong in sponsorship, but was strong in big book thumpers. And I heard this tape. I heard her speak at the conference. I was sitting in that meeting. I didn't hear that till about a year ago when I listened to the tape. That was only 4 years later, 5 years later. But she said one thing. She said the people that were big book thumpers said, you better read this thing and study this thing like your life depends upon it, because it does. You know, I carry a heavy weight in this program. I have a heavy responsibility, and hopefully what I say is what I believe at this very moment. Open to be wrong and open to be right. You know, I can change, and that's what the miracle is. I think I need to learn this program. I think I need to get with old timers. Charlie B. from York, Charlie Baker, who's now dead. He had 20 years of sobriety, 17 when I met him, and I didn't like him. I put him on a pedestal, but I didn't like him. But his experience is still with me. I got with old timers. I desperately needed old timers, and we desperately need their message today. We desperately need them. They taught me a lot of what I feel today, a lot of what I may not be able to express, but I feel in here. You know, when the tears and the God bumps come, and being with you and the hugs, that's part of what they showed me. That's part of having friends, and I just met Jeff Sides, and I got to mention Jeff, that, you know, it's the message that we still care no matter what happens. You know, no matter what happens. I met Jeff, and I hope you don't mind, Jeff, that I met Jeff, and he worked in a treatment facility after I went through there, and he went out and used. And I think part of the message that we still carry is that we still love you no matter if you do use. Sometimes I learn how to say, that was good. I have to learn how to say no and let someone else assume the responsibility. And sometimes I just have to learn how to say yes one more time and be willing to be burned. You know? And I think, I don't know how we got together, but we went and Jeff needed help. And it was an inconvenience, but we did it anyway, you know, because that's what my sponsors told me. And he's sober today, and that's a beautiful miracle. Not by my hand, but by God working through me saying, okay, one more time. Okay, one more time you're going out to help somebody else. I think that's the message that we need to carry. That we still have open arms and open hands. That we still love each other no matter what. Sometimes it's real hard to do. Sometimes we have to love people by saying no and having that tough love that's saying, I can't put up with this anymore. The message sometimes is absolutely no. But, I have people, I have resentments in my life, and I have all sorts of people that I think have done wrong to Bill, and yet they go out and use, and it's not, I don't know if it's self-pity, but I pray to God that they find what I found. I pray to God they find what I found. They use this is not anything to do with Jeff, but they use the revolving door. They say that they come in and say I'm sorry, and then they leave. And they come in and say I'm sorry to clean up the wreckage of their little path right then, and then and they go out and leave. And I've had people in my life like that, and I've had to say no, and I've had to pray for them, and I just pray one thing, that they find what I found. They find that little kid inside. They find that spark that's barely flickering, and they grasp onto it, and they hold onto it like I did when I came through the doors. I think that's a real neat thing to feel today, considering I read that letter, and this is a kid that never felt like that, or was too scared to say stuff like that. I hope they find what I found. An AA group, I'll never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any else. This is a good one. Any finance or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise. At least problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. This was interesting. I came in, and after a while, when I first got sober, I was very proud to be an alcoholic, and I went out and said, yes, my name's, job interviews. Yes, hi, how you doing? Hi, good to see you. I'm Bill. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Look at me, great, wonderful me. And what I was doing was using Alcoholics Anonymous as a way to gain employment, to gain pats on the back, and I was breaking the traditions. That's what I believe. Whether I'm a recovering alcoholic, what I need to learn, and what the book tells me, is that if I am truly the only copy of the big book people ever see, what if I go get drunk? It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I have that choice today. God knows I don't want to make that choice today. But I could, depending on circumstances, depending on me wanting to take a drink or not, depending on me. Recovery is my responsibility. But I use this program. I use it to hand out business cards. Give me a call later. Here's my card. Bill, what's your phone number? Oh, here's my card. And I abuse this program. I didn't use this program. I abuse this program. I have to be very careful to protect this program. Again, it's designed. These things are designed to protect the fellowship from me. It's designed to protect the fellowship from you. The money thing is real good. Is real good. All the bickering that I've heard in service has been over money. The property and stuff, that's no big deal. We've had to move our groups and do stuff like that. But in Pensy Pie, we raised a good sum of money at the first conference. A very good sum of money. And we elected to disperse it to the Eastern District, the Western Districts, our own areas, intergroup, general services, the natural order of progression. And then it came the point where prudent reserve popped up. We need to keep a prudent reserve, and here it came. We should keep 8,000, or no, we didn't have that much. But we made some money, and we should keep 2,000. We should keep 3,000, or we should only send them $25. It wasn't quite like that, but that was the extremes that came in. What's a prudent reserve? And you saw all the personalities come out. Money. I am a very greedy individual at times, and I don't want to part with money. I work in anyway. And the arguments were hilarious. And Bobby was on the committee, and he knows, and he sits on the advisory council today, and he knows. And God, man, money was the big thing. And what the book tells me is that a good group is a broke group. Wow, you try telling that to people that have a lot of money in their pocket. Well, we have to keep this. What if? We started Pensy Pie with no money. We passed the basket. We had $11 in our treasury. And we're talking about having this great, wonderful, big conference, and we were petrified, as I'm sure Gail and the others are petrified today. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. Oh, great. Great, One thing, Bill talked about a story in the book, and he talked about, I don't know what this has to do with that, but he talked about giving a drunk $5 and said, look at me. And that's when they tried to get members to send $1 here every year as a kind of a fee, voluntary fee, and people weren't sending their dollars in on, I guess, in his time, and he had a drunk there, and he gave him a $5 bill, knowing that Lois needed the money for groceries. And then when he was at the meeting that night, they passed the baskets, and it got up the steps to where he was, and he pulled out a 50-cent piece. And I'm guilty of this. Pull out, got a quarter, got a dime, got a nickel, got a couple pennies, and throw them in the basket, But anyway, money to me is something that I've achieved a quality of life, and I'm scared to part with sometimes. And my God, the things that I've parted with over the years, it's the least thing that I can do. The arguments that I've been involved with, like I said earlier, is just over money, and what we finally got to agree to is that we keep $1,500 and let it all go. And my argument was if we did it once, we can do it again. See, I'm very lazy, and a prudent reserve is the more I have, the less work I have to do. It's an inconvenience. I love that word. It's an inconvenience. I'll have to go out and put on a couple more fundraisers to pay the bills. And so what if we can't pay the bills? We'll just have to do a little bit more work. And God will lend me the ability to go out and to do the work if necessary. I'll have to be inconvenienced again. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. When we were putting on the conference, and I leaned heavily on Marvin, is that people were willing to give us money from outside. And the danger of that is that we had hospitals willing to give us $500 and $1,000, and we were like, oh, okay. Nothing wrong with that, is there? God, we don't have to do a dance this week. Again, I'm lazy. My character defects came in, and I don't have to do any more work. And it was very easy to have them give us money. And what the danger was that they could come in and say, hey, look, we gave you $500. We're the biggest contributor to your thing. We think you're doing it wrong. We think you need to do it this way. And that's the danger. That's the danger. Somebody can come in and express their views, and God, that would be very scary. A loving God, as He may express Himself through our group conscience, and that's what protects the AA from me. I could sit here and give whatever amount of money and see, I did that. If I don't, I'm going to pull that money away. Now you're caught. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. You want it, but yet if the threat is there, and we need not do that. Kenny, he kept saying, have faith. Have faith. God will work it out. It'll work out. Just have the faith. Oh, faith. Yeah, faith. I got to have faith on that. So it's pretty simple that we're self-supporting through our own contributions. I got to lighten up a little bit. And what Bill learned through that story was that it was an ego satisfier that he gave the drunk a $5 bill. He could tell people that, oh, see, look at me. But when it came to his own group, when it came to a conference or a convention or giving, that he was a little bit, nah, quarter's fine. I'm guilty of that. I do that all the time. But as I come and as I read and as I learn more, I'm willing to give more within what's necessary today. I have to be a little more tight, a little less tight-fisted or whatever the word is. I became very tight when I was early on in sobriety. I would in my addiction, hell, it was simple to buy people. I would expend money right and left. Drinks are on me, and I'd pick people's tabs up, and I never met them. Look at the great, wonderful me, and in sobriety, I become, never mind. Nope. Not a quarter, not a dime, not a nickel, and I just gotta, my sponsor said to me, what's the price for sobriety? What's the price for sobriety? There is no price. What I have today is, Charlie B. always said, it's a good day to die and my bags are packed. People like me, and what I've learned is people like me shouldn't be here. There was a guy from Baltimore, Maryland, I believe it was Baltimore, named Lenny Bias, and he died, and I was a big basketball fan, and he died a week after I'd seen him play, and he was snatched out of the business of living. And I identified with him, and I could identify with his actions. And he had his whole life set forward. And the reason sometimes it's really amazing why I'm here. People like me shouldn't be alive. If it's truly a day at a time. Now, I have young children, I have another one on the way, and we have things planned for the future. But I have to give to the very thing that gave me life. I have to give. That's just my opinion. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. And this was an interesting one. In that story about Bill, he could have become a lay therapist by Charlie that worked in the hospital and wanted the movement to come in, and that professionalism scared people. That AA needed more than professionalism. To me, it's that okay, I have Robert's Rules of Orders and I know what's great. And to me, that's just saying, again, that's my ego saying that I know what it is. That we have a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous that become professionals, and that's beautiful. That work in the field, and that's beautiful. And I'm not down that at all, because that's the way I got the message carried. But we do not need to be professional. It's a group runs on the group conscience. I don't know. The message is pretty simple. God speaks through you to me, and hopefully from me to you. And but this thing about special workers in the book, when this thing started going, and in Alaska and stuff, and there was a story. I gotta tell you, this is such a wild story. There's a legend in some place in Alaska, and I was reading to Bobby on the way down. I was like, ooh, look at this, and about a legend where these two guys went out and they went camping or whatever they do in Alaska, and I'm going to make up some of this. Ice fishing, I don't know. They forgot to stoke the fire, and the fire went out, and they almost froze to death. And then the guy went outside. He woke up just in time, and he woke out. He walked outside to find some fuel for the fire, and there was a big oil drum filled with water, and it was obviously frozen. It was 50 below, and he saw a yellow reddish object at the bottom of the barrel, and it was a copy of the Big Book. They thawed it out, and it was a copy of the Big Book. It's a legend, but it was a neat little story, and we don't know how the message needs to be carried, but there was a Saturday Evening Post article. There were a lot of different articles in the beginning that divulged AA. People requested stuff from AA, and special workers needed to be there. They needed to be there to help carry the message, and that's what I've learned is that we need special workers. We do need special workers. The people in the home office do a miraculous job to get the message out, and I think in this tradition was really brought out to me in AA Comes of Age, and that's what I was reading on the way down was how this thing started and how it progressed, and it was a big argument at the time. Well, we shouldn't hire people, and there was a story about a guy they wanted a janitor basically for a clubhouse, and they weren't going to pay the guy, and he said, well, if I'm going to be a janitor, I'm going to get paid. That's not 12-step work. That's a job, so they found out through a lot of trial and stuff that was okay to pay people. That 12-step work and special hires are all right. And he explains it in the book. Read the book. It's in there. Thanks for letting me share that. This is one that really got me when I was early on when I read this thing. It was AA is such now I'd never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible for those they serve. No, I came in and I had a few attitudes, and I was like going to become Mr. AA. And I was like, okay, you all need a president of this thing. I got to tell you the story. I was talking with a guy that had recently gone out and drank, and And he said, well, one of the reasons I went out and drank is because there's a guy up in New York making a lot of money off this movement. And that was the president. That's what I wanted to be. And again, I have to stay away from dictatorship, and I have to learn that my opinions are just mine. It's what I've come to believe in. And this thing works just fine. It's unlike any organization I've ever belonged to. Being a regional vice president of a finance organization, things had to have rules and regulations by God, and it had to be strict adherence to these things. And with the SEC, you have to follow a straight path. And damn, this thing was unusual. Never be organized. You go to a business meeting and there's no organization to a business meeting, and the guns are out and people are, and it's not organized. And you go, God, nothing ever gets done. But somehow this beautiful thing stays together, through the group conscience. And anyway, the committee for Pensy was we weren't very organized. We had certain things we knew we needed to do. When they got done, that was a different story, and it came through a lot of experience that we were. Our primary purpose for that committee was to carry the message, nothing more. That we needed to do certain things, and we hoped they would get done, but we weren't real organized. One of our business meetings was very, very tragic. We all wanted to quit. We didn't want to do it, and we stuck in there one more day, and that's through sponsorship. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. Again, I told you, I came in and with job interviews, I stuck my card out and I wrote my name on the back, and other people I had seen, right, had business cards with AA, it's a way of life on it, and stuff, and again, I don't need to lend my name to Saddam Hussein. Okay, I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous member, and this is my view, because if I go out and get drunk, I may be the only copy of the big book somebody sees. I can endanger this program, and what I've learned is I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to look for this out there. I don't need to take Alcoholics Anonymous and say, I'm a member. Look at me. Suspenders, hey, I'm fine, and because I can draw it into many different things. I just need to relax and to become, this is what I am. This is me. I have a title for what's wrong with my title. I have a name for what's wrong with me, and that's that I'm an alcoholic. It's not a problem today. It's an asset. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. Being in the business field, I too thought of great, wonderful ways, and then in the book it talks about a promoter, and he came in and he had great ideas for AA, that he was going to publicize this thing, and we should do this and we should do that, and one of the groups, well, it doesn't matter the name of the group, but one of the groups wanted to have education. They wanted to have one big building, and they wanted to promote this thing, and education on one floor, and so on and so forth, and rehab and stuff like that. And what they found is that when they do stuff like that, it's endangering this program. I can go, again, my message is, if I'm the only copy of the big book somebody sees, and if I go out and get drunk and I'm out promoting this great, wonderful AA thing, and it happens in bars a lot. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Great. I don't need to do that. It's, I watch people, that's one thing I would learn to do, is watch and utilize, and I saw people in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they were happy. Again, the laughter came out, and that was attraction rather than promotion. My first sponsors didn't slam me down and say, "Damn it, this is the way it ought to be." They just said, "Hey, if you want it, it's wild, it's beautiful, interspersed with moments of pure hell." And I learned that through a friend of mine: attraction rather than promotion. I don't know what this has to do with most anything, but it has me to do with change and a way of allowing the steps to work in my life. And this guy was my sponsor, and he had a chip on his shoulder. That was my opinion, and that's why he was my sponsor. Anyway, I fired him. He did something that I didn't like. He beat his dog, and I just didn't stand for that, by God. And at the time, I was right. And that's my opinion. But anyway, I fired him, and he lost his daughter. His daughter died a very violent death, and we'd go to meetings and we'd be angry at each other. We'd sit across the meeting. Nothing bothers me. Anyway, friends of ours were watching this. We were with newcomers and stuff, and friends of ours were watching this, and when his daughter died, we sent him flowers. And one thing I've learned is I don't want anything bad to happen to people, no matter how bad I dislike them. And that was part, I believe, of the attraction of Alcoholics Anonymous, that people love me in spite of myself. And I love Steve in spite of himself, and he was supposed to be here today and couldn't make it. But his daughter died, and when my daughter was born with cancer, that she was 2 days old when they found it, and we went through Hershey Medical Center in PA and Hershey, and I walked out of the last test, and they said, "You have family here." I had Ashley on my chest, and I was like, family. Wait a minute. My in-laws just went home. My mother is still in Charlottesville, and I don't have family here. My brothers were all in Savannah and all over the country, and I don't have family here. And when I walked in the room, Steve was there with his wife and another couple, and that's attraction to me. And I don't know how else to state that, is that he shared with me that his daughter went through the same hall, the same room, and died. That he was there because he cared enough about somebody else to carry the message to me that you're going to get through this thing, and you're not going to have to worry about drinking. And he was there, and that's attraction. And I've been able to give that message back, and I've been able to be there for people, no matter what I thought. It didn't matter. The fact is that I better damn well be inconvenienced, and I better damn well be there. And Steve gave me that. Steve and I are very good friends today. He was just over my house last night, and we were howling and stuff. And the attraction part, rather than promotion, is that people notice that I'm different, and I am different. Marvin, I'll have a word or two about that, but and I'm glad he's not here. People watch. I watch people in AA. I watch people in the outside world. People notice change that were close to me noticed a change. When we went on our honeymoon, we were down in St. Thomas, and everybody on the boat's drinking, and they're all just drunk as hell, and we're sitting there drinking Cokes, and the lady walks up to me and goes, "There's something different about you. There's a sparkle in your eyes." Sparkle? It works. And there was something different about us. It was attraction. We were smiling and we were laughing, and that didn't bother us what they did. I did that for years. I did what they were doing for years. That was nothing new. But that was a neat thing. It was attraction rather than promotion. We didn't say, "Oh, yes, I'm a sober mental alcoholic. So I've been sober since September 20th, 1984. Oh, you want to copy the big book? Here we go, Jesus Christ, I could puke all over somebody, I used to do that too, but, it wasn't very good promotion. I refereed lacrosse. I got to tell you this story, and I am running over, but that's normal for me. But anyway, I was a lacrosse official, and the head lacrosse official was. I was being promoted to my first college game, and we were at the bar one night, and I was doing other substances. But anyway, I was a little tipsy, and a friend of mine told a joke, and I had just taken some, and this is great promotion for me as moving up in the Lacrosse Officials Association, and Bob was standing right beside me, and I'd just taken a sip, and I spewed it all over it. Well, that was good. He assigned me the game. It was like, oh, God, Middleton, what are you doing? And that's the way I used to promote myself. Today I do it just a tad differently, Oh, boy, But that didn't happen once. It happened twice in 5 minutes, and it wasn't, I didn't get the game for some reason. The way I carried myself, the way I conducted myself was not good. Today it is different, I can walk out with a smile on my face. I don't have to walk like this, See people walking on the street, head held down. It's like, you want to walk up to them and go, what the hell's down there? What the hell is that? You know? Oh my God. You know, you walk around and people talk at meetings and they go. And I love laughing. You know, and you sit up there and go, God, what's up there? You know, is it God? You know, I don't know. I love to laugh, and I guess that's my, that's my attraction. Is that God? The one thing Alcoholics Anonymous has given me today is the ability to laugh at me. You know, it restored laughter. It not only restored love for you and for me, but it restored laughter, and I think that's the greatest gift. This kid took everything too damn seriously. And today I'm able to bend. I heard a story, and I don't know what the hell this is doing and all this stuff, but I heard a story about it. His name was Father Leo, and we heard him talk in Las Vegas, and these people touched my lives, and I need to identify them because they carried the message. He shared a story about sobriety, and he said, when we come in, we're dry. We're like a dried cracked leaf. We're like a dried leaf. Anything that happens to us, we crack and we break. And that's what happens. Sobriety is about being supple. That when things happen to us, we don't have to crack and break. We bend. It's like a regular leaf on a tree. You notice that you have to bend it a lot in order to get it to break, and I think that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. At the level of press, radio, and film, again, that's just me putting away my ego to protect the very thing that gave me life. You know, I see, you see talk shows and stuff on TV, and people identify themselves as Alcoholics Anonymous and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that scares me. That scares me. Because those people are in the public eye. This is my opinion. They're in the public eye, and if they get drunk, but see, it doesn't work. AA works just fine. I don't need to identify those pats on the back. I don't need that stuff. I need to keep it here, and it's disclosure on a need-to-know basis. I don't need to go out and put a billboard in my first house in recovery. We rented, and the guy thought that we were going to go out and put a billboard in the front of the yard that said Alcoholics Anonymous on it. And he was real scared about that. You know, I don't need to do that stuff. You know, I don't need to promote this thing. I need to protect this fellowship, and I don't know. I just got to be careful. Part of my ego says, go. You know, run with this thing. You know, think of the message you could carry to people. You know, the ego sits in there. I think this whole thing with traditions is designed to keep my pride, my false pride, my ego, and my anger out of the way, so I can guard this thing. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And to me, it's interesting that they have spiritual foundation. I never had a spiritual foundation. I had attitudes. You know, I never based anything of what God would think would be best for you. It's what Bill thought was best of you. Somehow, when I have someone does something wrong to me, I place, well, he should know better. If I'm spiritually set, I believe, if I'm in line with what I believe is God's will for me, if I'm praying, if I'm doing that on a regular basis, if I'm working the steps in my life, I become not as rigid. I become a little bit more open-minded. And when I come to that point where it's usually personalities before principles, if I go back to that kid inside, if I go back to that centerpiece and try to remember that it's God's will and God's time and not God's will and Bill's time, somehow those personalities just aren't that important anymore. Now, let me make one thing clear. It affects me. Personalities affect me. But I have to, what I have to weigh for me is, what are those principles? Where are they operating from? I try to put myself in somebody else's shoes today, and that's real weird. I'm not as rigid as what I used to be. I need to protect this fellowship. That God gave me this beautiful program. It's the greatest responsibility, and it's the greatest gift ever been given to me. Ever been given to me. It's priceless, and I need to protect that. I need to set aside my own ego and my own way, and just try to live in harmony with people. And God, that's weird for a kid from Charlottesville, Virginia, that just didn't, way back when they founded this program, and it's just different. You know, it's different. When somebody harmed me, like my mother's letter said, they were out of my life. I carried a resentment for 15 years for somebody. And today I have a beautiful way to work through those things to where I can somehow look at their point of view. Sometimes it's damn tough, you know. Sometimes with like Steve and I sat in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and I sat there angry as hell. Angry as hell. Principles before personalities. He shouldn't have done what he did. I don't know how I stayed sober. Grace of God. But, you know, it's just amazing that I sat in there and I had personalities before principles. You know, one way I learned this is that through my own divulging myself to my sponsors and close friends. My father left when I was 9 years old. He was in the House of Delegates in Virginia, and he could have become governor of Virginia, and he had a lot of backing. And it was a very hard thing to go through school and to be the only kid at a father and son banquet with no parent. And anyway, I carried a long resentment with him. Long resentment. What I've come to realize, and I'm going to end with this, is that this is the biggest thing. This is the biggest thing. One of the principles I've learned is that I did what was right, what I thought was right, for 18 years of my life. I made decisions based on what I thought was right. I have to afford that same luxury to him. I may not agree with him, with what he did, but I have to afford that luxury to him. That he may be in God's time, that he will come to see as what I think are errors in his ways, as I came to see errors in mine. You know? He's my father. I never called him that. I love him in a special way. You know, I don't know him, but I carried resentments. I put personalities before principles. Today, Alcoholics Anonymous gives me a way to become centered inside, to become peaceful with the things of my past and the things of my future, and to become current. And you know, I've made attempts to get to know him, and he doesn't want that, and I respect that today. That maybe sometime, maybe somehow we'll talk. Maybe we won't. You know, that I hear people bitch about their father did this and their father did that. One thing friends have taught me is that no matter what happens, somebody's story is different. Somebody's story is a little bit worse. That luckily you have a parent there. You know, I learned that he loved me in the way he could. He made decisions the way he thought was right. I'm allowed to change. I have to afford that luxury to others. Again, I'd like to thank Gail and my sponsor Marvin and just the ability to get up here and try to give something away that I've been given. You know, and through trying to work this program and to trying to carry the message and just to keep trying, I'm becoming a better person today. It instills in me doing this what I believe is right for Bill. And God, that's a miracle today. I'd like to end with this, and I will end that. My daughter is reaping the rewards of this program, and that's a miracle. You know, I always wanted to be a father. I always wanted those things with a house and all that good stuff that I've gotten being sober. And my daughter is affected by this program. She hears about God, and she's 2 years old, and she hears about God, and she hears about, you know, feelings, and it's neat. It is, what a worthless word, neat, but it's just, it's neat. She hears laughter, and she loves to laugh too, and that's a direct result of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you very much.
One more time, I'm Bob, not an alcoholic. And thanks, Bill, and thanks everyone for being here. Before we close, I've been asked to make a few announcements here about this.